Medicine once promised to cure everything except common sense. 1. The mercury miracle. In the 8th century, doctors believed mercury could cure almost anything: syphilis, constipation, even the common cold. Mercury, the same shiny stuff that makes thermometers look pretty and brain cells die. They prescribed it in pills, ointments, and even as vapor baths. Patients would literally sweat out their sanity while their organs turned into a chemistry experiment. The logic was simple. If it burns, it's working. People's teeth fell out, their skin peeled off, and their personalities evaporated faster than the mercury itself. The best part? Doctors called it a gentle purgative. Gentle, in the same way a flamethrower is a gentle space heater. When the side effects killed you, they'd shrug and say, well, at least the disease didn't win. 2. The tobacco enema. In the 1770s, European doctors thought blowing smoke, literally, into someone's rear end could save lives. It was called the tobacco smoke enema, and it was used to revive drowning victims. Lifeguards carried bellows to pump nicotine into people's colons, hoping the warmth and stimulant effects would restart their hearts. Because nothing says medical emergency like a pipe up your butt. Eventually, they noticed a problem. The treatment often killed the patient faster than the drowning. Turns out, nicotine poisoning is a thing. The practice finally died out when someone invented the concept of basic human dignity. Modern medicine calls it rescue breathing. Old medicine called it hotboxing your intestines. 3. The radioactive beauty cream. In the early 1900s, radioactive products were the rage. Companies sold radium water, radiant toothpaste, and even glowing face cream promising eternal youth. Because what could go wrong with rubbing nuclear waste on your cheeks? Wealthy women applied it daily, glowing brighter than their engagement rings. One brand advertised, "You'll shine at every party." And they weren't wrong. Some quite literally did. Their bones began to glow under x-rays, and their jaws disintegrated. Doctors called it radium jaw, but marketing insisted it was a sign of rejuvenation. By the time the FDA stepped in, the damage was done. The moral? If your skincare routine requires a lead-lined vanity, maybe it's not working. 4. The tapeworm diet. In the early 1900s, beauty culture reached its final form. Why exercise when you can host a parasite? Tapeworm diet pills were advertised as a miracle weight loss cure. The idea was simple: swallow a capsule containing a live worm, let it move in, and watch the pounds melt away. You didn't need a treadmill when you had a roommate eating half your lunch from the inside. Ads promised an elegant figure without effort, as if malnutrition were a form of glamour. Women bragged about losing weight, while doctors quietly treated them for anemia, exhaustion, and, shockingly, worms. Some even claimed to have trained their tapeworms, like some kind of gastric pet. The only thing more horrifying than the treatment itself was the removal process, which usually involved coaxing the worm out by dangling food near the patient's mouth. Because nothing says beauty routine like fishing for a snake through your digestive system. 5. The electric bath cure. In the 1890s, electricity was the new miracle drug. Doctors didn't fully understand how it worked, but they were certain it cured everything from arthritis to female hysteria. Patients were strapped into electric chairs, not the criminal kind, but not far off, while current pulsed through their bodies. Advertisements called it invigorating, though mild electrocution might have been more accurate. Some salons offered electric baths, where you'd soak in water as wires hummed around you like a science fair gone wrong. Others promised electro-beauty therapy, claiming that voltage would tighten skin and brighten the eyes. What it really did was cause burns, muscle spasms, and the occasional blackout, both electrical and personal. But people lined up anyway. After all, if Thomas Edison could light up cities, surely he could fix your wrinkles. 6. The arsenic complexion. Cure nothing says luxury skincare like a spoonful of poison. In the Victorian era, women took arsenic tablets to achieve that ghostly pale English rose complexion. Pale skin meant status. You didn't labor in the sun, you lounged indoors like a fragile art piece. So naturally, the next step was eating trace amounts of rat poison. Ads swore it would purify the blood and make your skin glow. Technically true, it glowed because your liver was dying. Arsenic caused nausea, hair loss, and a kind of deathly radiance that, ironically, looked flawless under candlelight. When people began dropping dead, companies simply adjusted the dosage and kept selling. The message was clear. Beauty might kill you, but at least you'd look stunning in the coffin. 7. The urine therapy craze. Let's talk about one of humanity's greatest wait what moments. For centuries, and shockingly, even into the 20th century, people believed that drinking their own urine could heal anything from acne to asthma. Ancient healers called it the golden elixir. Modern believers just called it Tuesday. Advocates claimed it boosted immunity, cured infections, and recycled nutrients. What it actually recycled was poor judgment. Doctors repeatedly warned that urine is waste for a reason. It's literally the body's trash delivery system. But no, some people bathed in it, gargled it, and even used it as eye drops. One famous 1970s guru swore by daily urine facials, proving that sometimes enlightenment smells suspiciously like ammonia. Even today, a few holdouts still swear by urotherapy, because apparently medical progress isn't for everyone. 8. The lobotomy revolution. And finally, nothing says cutting-edge medicine like cutting into your brain with an ice pick. In the 1940s and 50s, lobotomies were hailed as the miracle cure for depression, anxiety, and pretty much any personality trait someone found inconvenient. Doctors slid metal rods through the eye sockets, scrambled a few brain connections, and called it therapy. The inventor, Dr. Walter Freeman, even toured the country in a van performing speed lobotomies like a drive-through McSurgery. Patients left the table calmer, yes, mostly because they'd been neurologically turned into furniture. Still, newspapers called him a hero. His success metric? They don't complain anymore. By the time science caught up, tens of thousands of people had been treated. Modern psychiatry prefers antidepressants, but let's be honest, compared to an ice pick behind the eyelid, even the side effects of Prozac sound like a vacation. 9. The bloodletting bonanza. If you've ever wondered how medieval doctors defined healthcare, it was basically, you've got too much blood in you. For centuries, the cure for everything, fever, headaches, bad vibes, was to drain a little of the red stuff. Doctors used leeches, knives, or even gold-plated lancets for the rich. A common cold? Slice a vein. Feeling weak? Let's fix that by making you weaker. The theory was that blood carried imbalances of humors, which sounds like a medieval way of saying, you're too alive. George Washington himself died after his doctors removed nearly half his blood in a single day. And these were the professionals. Imagine the DIY crowd. Barbers, the same guys who cut your hair, would cheerfully slice open your arm between trims. The iconic red and white barber pole? It literally represents bloody bandages. So next time you get a haircut, just be thankful they stopped offering the complimentary vein. Cleanse. 10. The cocaine toothache. Drops before cocaine became the villain of the 80s. It was the hero of the 1880s. Back then, pharmacists put it in everything. Lozenges, wines, and especially toothache drops for children. Yes, Victorian parents were literally rubbing cocaine on their toddlers' gums and calling it medicine. The kids stopped crying, all right? Mostly because they were too busy seeing God. Ads promised instant relief and restful sleep, which technically happened after the crash. Even household names like Coca-Cola got in on the action, mixing cocaine with sugar water and marketing it as a refreshing tonic. It was the original energy drink, minus the part where your heart explodes. When doctors finally realized the miracle cure was also turning patients into jittery philosophers with nosebleeds, the FDA stepped in. Until then, every pharmacy was basically a socially acceptable drug den, and every parent thought they'd discovered the secret to perfect parenting. Just add a little booger sugar. 11. The heroin cough syrup. If your 19th century doctor handed you a bottle of cough syrup, chances are you were about to have a very calm night. Bayer, the same company that makes aspirin, once sold heroin as an over-the-counter miracle drug. The label proudly said, for coughs, colds, and children's irritability. Because apparently the best way to stop coughing was to stop feeling anything at all. Parents loved it. Kids loved it. Pharmacists were probably floating 2 feet off the ground. The logic was pure gold. If morphine was too addictive, let's make a stronger version and call it less addictive. That's like replacing cigarettes with dynamite sticks and calling it progress. Within a decade, entire towns were hooked. When the government finally banned it, people complained that nothing else worked as well. Yeah, no kidding. Modern cold medicine might taste terrible, but at least you don't wake up 3 weeks later in a jazz band. 12. The vibrator cure for hysteria. In the late 1800s, doctors had a unique diagnosis for any woman showing signs of emotion, stress, or, heaven forbid, opinions. They called it hysteria. The treatment? Inducing paroxysms, read orgasms, to calm the nerves. But doing it manually took time, and the line at the clinic was long. Enter the mechanical vibrator, marketed as a serious medical device. It was advertised in catalogs right next to sewing machines and typewriters, complete with phrases like therapeutic stimulation device and restores feminine balance. Housewives bought them in droves, claiming it helps with tension. And technically, it did. Doctors later pretended they had no idea what was really happening, but history begs to differ. Once electricity became common, home therapy devices sold faster than aspirin. It might be the only medical invention in history that genuinely worked but had to be quietly rebranded as recreational. 13. The corpse medicine craze. Let's take a trip back to the Renaissance, when rich Europeans believed the ultimate cure for any illness was, you guessed it, people. Apothecaries sold ground-up mummy powder imported from Egypt, believing ancient kings were packed with healing energy. People drank mummy tea, snorted mummy dust, and rubbed mummy ointment on wounds. When supplies ran low, grave robbers helpfully restocked by grinding up fresh corpses. Some physicians even prescribed human fat salves for pain relief. The belief was that consuming life force made you stronger. In reality, it mostly made you very sick and very cursed. Ironically, the same people who banned cannibalism at dinner were chugging farro smoothies at breakfast. When science finally caught up, doctors dropped the practice, quietly, without an apology. Because nothing says Renaissance wellness like powdered royalty in your porridge. 14. The trepanation. Therapy. Imagine having a migraine so bad that your doctor says, let's drill a hole in your skull. Welcome to trepanation, one of humanity's oldest medical procedures. Ancient healers believed that boring a hole into your head would release evil spirits, pressure, or bad thoughts, sometimes all three. They used flint tools, no anesthesia, and a hope-for-the-best attitude. Incredibly, many patients survived. Archaeologists have found skulls with healed-over holes, proving people lived years after their surgery. In the 1600s, the practice made a comeback among early scientists who swore it improved blood flow and intelligence. Spoiler, it didn't. Even in the 1970s, a few enthusiasts revived trepanation as a DIY enlightenment hack. Because if there's one thing we can't resist, it's drilling into our heads and calling it self-improvement. 15. The leech renaissance. Ah yes, the leech, nature's slippery little intern. For centuries, doctors believed these worms were basically liquid stethoscopes. From the Middle Ages to the 19th century, leeches were used to treat everything. Nosebleeds, obesity, heartbreak. Got a fever? Stick a few on your forehead. Feeling sad? Maybe one behind each ear. French pharmacies even had leech sommeliers who specialized in matching worms to ailments. By the 1830s, Europe was using hundreds of millions of leeches a year. They were so popular that leech farms became big business. Some doctors swore by leeching the soul as therapy. The truth? They just made you anemic and slimy, yet modern medicine still uses them occasionally for reattaching fingers or improving circulation. So yes, leeches had a redemption arc. Turns out the worm you mocked in history class might one day save your thumb. 16. The radium water fiasco. Aha! The roaring 1920s. When jazz was hot, flappers were wild, and radioactive water was the new Gatorade. Radithor, a popular tonic, promised to cure fatigue, impotence, and apparently, common sense. It was literally just distilled water mixed with radium, the same stuff that glows because it's slowly killing you. Wealthy businessmen drank it by the bottle, calling it liquid sunshine. One millionaire, Eben Byers, consumed so much he glowed brighter than his personality, until his jaw fell off. Newspapers politely described his condition as radiation poisoning, though glow-in-the-dark skeleton might have been more accurate. Doctors eventually banned Radithor, proving that maybe science shouldn't sparkle. But for a few shining years, America thought radioactivity was just health with a twinkle. It's a timeless lesson. If your drink glows in the dark, you're not getting healthier. You're just skipping the cremation step. 17. The smoking baby treatment. In the early 1900s, tobacco wasn't just cool, it was medicinal. Doctors recommended smoking for sore throats, digestion, and lung strength, because nothing screams healthy lungs like tar. One 1905 medical guide even suggested that infants with asthma inhale small puffs of smoke to open the airways. Yes, baby's first Marlboro moment. Advertisements showed glowing testimonials from mothers. My child coughs less since I let him share my cigarette. Pediatricians nodded in agreement, while toddlers developed the nicotine tolerance of a jazz musician. Cigarette brands like Camel and Lucky Strike proudly boasted that they were doctor-approved. Spoiler, they were also coffin-approved. By mid-century, science finally caught up with the obvious. Setting fire to dried leaves and inhaling the smoke might not be self-care. But until then, humanity proudly passed out cigars at birth, and sometimes to the baby. 18. The goat-gland surgery. Meet John R. Brinkley, the goat-gland doctor of 1920s Kansas, a man who decided the secret to male virility was livestock parts. Brinkley performed hundreds of surgeries where he implanted goat testicles into men to restore youth and vigor. He claimed the procedure cured everything from baldness to broken marriages. It didn't. It mostly caused infections and the occasional spontaneous bleeding. But Brinkley was a marketing genius. He built a radio empire, coined the phrase rejuvenation, and became rich enough to run for governor. His slogan? A goat in every man. It worked better as propaganda than as medicine. By the time authorities caught up, hundreds of men had become unwilling pioneers of barnyard biology. Brinkley lost his license, but not before proving that charisma and goat parts can take you disturbingly far in life. Modern medicine calls him a fraud. History calls him creative. 19. The malaria therapy. In one of medicine's boldest "what were we thinking" moments, 1920s, doctors discovered a cure for syphilis by giving patients malaria. Dr. Julius Wagner Jauregg won a Nobel Prize for this idea, proving that science sometimes rewards enthusiasm over judgment. The logic was simple. High fevers from malaria could kill the syphilis bacteria, and it worked, sort of. Patients did get cured, right before they also got malaria. Doctors proudly celebrated the miracle as long as their patients didn't die from round two. Hospitals began breeding mosquitoes like livestock, literally running malaria farms. Eventually, antibiotics replaced the madness, and doctors stopped infecting people on purpose. But for a while, the prescription for an STD was mosquito therapy. Somewhere in Vienna, a scientist looked at a buzzing insect and said, "This is medicine now." And that's why history books should come with warning labels. Do not try this century. 20. The snake oil empire. Snake oil isn't just a metaphor, it was an actual product. In the late 1800s, traveling salesmen roamed America selling miracle tonics made from rattlesnake fat, alcohol, and pure confidence. They promised to cure arthritis, gout, headaches, and occasionally death. Crowds gathered as pitchmen in fancy hats performed fake healings. One sip, and suddenly a man crippled by rheumatism could dance again, usually because the bottle was 40% whiskey. The most famous brand, Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment, was tested by the government in 1917. Result? No snake oil, just mineral oil and turpentine. The great American medical hoax was exposed, but the term lived on. Snake oil salesman became shorthand for anyone selling garbage with a grin. Funny thing is, 120 years later, influencers on TikTok are basically doing the same thing, just with better lighting and worse science. 21. The tapeworm beauty pills. Revisited. Because humanity never learns the first time, the infamous tapeworm diet made a glamorous comeback in the early 1900s, this time with packaging. Pills imported from Europe's elite spas promised weight loss through natural internal digestion aids. Translation? Parasites in capsules. The ads featured gorgeous women lounging beside captions like "Eat all you want and stay slim." What they didn't mention was the fun part. Intestinal blockages, fevers, and worms occasionally wriggling out during dinner parties. Doctors were horrified, but society called it progress. Even when people got sick, companies blamed user error, not the living creature in your gut. Eventually, stricter food laws banned the pills, but the myth of effortless beauty survived. The tapeworm may be gone, but the spirit of self-destructive dieting lives on. Now it just comes in a detox tea with influencers instead of pharmacists. 22. The vinegar and gunpowder cure. In the 8th century, soldiers believed that drinking gunpowder mixed with vinegar made them tougher. Yes, literal explosives and salad dressing, nature's original pre-workout. Military doctors endorsed it as invigorating, because when your beverage can also double as ammunition, you're apparently unstoppable. Some soldiers swore it gave them iron nerves, though it mostly gave them ulcers and the world's worst breath. Officers even issued gunpowder tonics before battle, assuming explosions inside your stomach translated to courage. Spoiler, it didn't. The only thing it cured was digestion, permanently. Still, the myth persisted, proving humanity's favorite medical principle. If it burns, it must be working. Today's energy shots are just the modern descendant of this nonsense, minus the actual TNT. So, next time you chug a mystery drink that tastes like chemistry class, remember, people once literally seasoned their bravery with explosives. 23. The dead mouse poultice. Some cures are so insane they make you appreciate modern Band-Aids. In Elizabethan England, doctors treated warts, toothaches, and infections with mashed-up mice. Not metaphorical mice, real ones crushed into medical smoothies. You'd mix the remains with bread or honey, then slap it on the affected area and wait for the healing spirits to take over. If your teeth hurt, you could even warm a dead mouse and hold it in your mouth. Because apparently plague wasn't enough, people wanted bonus bacteria. The practice lasted for centuries. It even made it into 17th century medical textbooks. Why? Because doctors at the time thought animals carried natural energy. And what better animal to trust with your health than a creature famous for spreading disease? Eventually, medicine caught up and retired the rodent rub. But the fact that anyone thought apply small corpse, feel better, is solid proof that history's motto was try anything once. 24. The soap enema era. Medicine has always had a complicated relationship with the human rear end, but the 19th century took it to an industrial level. Hospitals began treating constipation, fatigue, and moral sluggishness with soap enemas. Yes, doctors literally pumped soap and water into patients, believing it cleansed impurities. In reality, it just gave them the world's worst bubble bath, internally. Nurses reported patients frothing at both ends, which sounds like a scene from a horror comedy. But back then, hygiene equaled holiness, and cleanliness was next to godliness, even if it burned like hell. There were even luxury versions, rose-scented soap enemas for ladies of refinement. The craze lasted decades until doctors realized soap doesn't belong where the sun doesn't shine. Today, detox clinics offer similar nonsense, just with green juice instead of bar soap. Different century, same logic. If it stings, it must be spiritual. 25. The lobster blood transfusions. Before hospitals had blood banks, they had imagination, and a lot of seafood. In the 1800s, doctors experimented with replacing human blood using animal substitutes. Pigs, sheep, even dogs got their moment. But one French doctor decided crustaceans were the future. He transfused lobster blood into patients, claiming it had revitalizing oceanic energy. Instead, patients turned blue and violently ill. The doctor insisted it was part of the healing process, which is medical code for oh no. Later, scientists discovered lobster blood coagulates instantly in humans. Translation: it turns your veins into seafood chowder. The procedure was finally banned, but the legend lived on as a symbol of pre-scientific creativity. Somewhere out there, a 19th century surgeon proudly thought, maybe humanity isn't so different from dinner. Spoiler, we are. Today, we donate blood. Back then, they just raided Red Lobster. 26. The mercury diaper disaster. The Victorians had one solution for everything: add mercury. Baby teething troubles, mercury-laced powder, diaper rash, mercury ointment. Because if it made thermometers shine, surely it made babies thrive. The most popular brand, Calomel, it was advertised as a mother's best friend. It soothed pain all right, by numbing nerve endings and slowly poisoning the poor infant. Children lost hair, teeth, and sometimes life, all while doctors insisted it was gentle. When symptoms of poisoning appeared, they called it teething fever and prescribed more mercury. It took nearly a century for the medical community to connect the dots. Parents wept, companies rebranded. Humanity learned an important lesson: never trust a medicine that sounds like a metal band. Modern parents have teething rings. Victorian parents had chemical warfare in a jar. 27. The radioactive toothpaste. In the 1930s, nothing said healthy smile like uranium. A German company launched Doramad radioactive toothpaste, promising a brighter, whiter glow, literally. The ads bragged it energized gums and rejuvenated tissue, which makes sense if your idea of rejuvenation is molecular decay. People brushed twice daily, proudly grinning like nuclear lanterns. Scientists warned that maybe radiation shouldn't be part of oral hygiene, but the brand insisted it was scientifically mild. Spoiler, it wasn't. Users developed mouth sores, anemia, and what historians politely call permanent luminescence. After World War II, the toothpaste disappeared faster than a Geiger counter reading. Yet the slogan, "A smile that shines," lives on. Proof that humanity will always trade safety for sparkle. Because apparently, if something glows, people just assume it's good for them. Medicine has cured countless diseases, but stupidity was never one of them. From tapeworm pills to uranium toothpaste, history proves humans will try anything once, especially if it sounds scientific. So, which cure deserves a comeback? The goat surgery? The glowing jawline? Drop your pick for history's dumbest miracle below. Because if laughter truly is the best medicine, we've just overdosed.